The most efficient way to heal yourself from a chronic illness like ME/CFS is via doing the releases. And I know that almost no coach is talking about these releases, but there is a very good reason for that. And understanding this can be huge in your own healing journey. But first of all, what is a release?
I remember feeling huge amounts of emotion coming up. My body was shaking.
And the symptoms were gone.
My body had come into a state of deep calm.
In the beginning, I really thought there was something wrong with my body.
I had a condition for 20 years and it stopped within 30 minutes.
But right after completing it, I felt like a completely different person.
So in short, whenever you have a symptom, you can dive into your body, you can connect with the underlying emotion that the brain perceives as a danger, you connect with it, you become emotional, and when you release it fully, the brain no longer has anything to fear. Because the reason why it made symptoms is gone. And then the symptoms can also be gone. And on top of that, before you probably felt like symptomatic, lots of thoughts, maybe anxiety, and all of that is just, it drops away. And that's huge. And the funny thing is that, well, of course, there's more to it, but we actually discovered this by accident. So we already knew the relationship between emotions and symptoms. For example, via research from Dr. John Sarno, Dr. John Eaton, etc. But we never really understood this direct connection between emotions on one hand and symptoms on the other hand. And I must say here, unconscious emotions. Because one day I had a phone call, and after the phone call, I all of a sudden got extremely fatigued. After that, we decided that it maybe had to do something with emotions, and it was indeed fear. And after feeling my fear through for, let's say, 20 minutes or 15 minutes or even less, I became symptom-free. So that was like a weird roller coaster. And that led to an obsession for me. I couldn't think about anything else anymore for, I think, 2 years. And this is the work that I'm doing now, of course. And it's not really out of the blue, of course. For example, when you have read the books of Dr. John Sarno, he mentioned a woman named Helen. And Helen had severe back pain. And then one day she had a spontaneous release. Meaning she was boiling with anger, she was enraged, she really felt her anger. And then after expressing that, the anger was just gone. And so were the symptoms, the back pain. But Dr. John Sarno said that this specific case was unreproducible. And we're really happy to have proven him wrong in this specific thing.
Bam, spontaneous release. Symptoms gone. And I was like, nah, this is unreal. This is this is amazing.
Many of you might have known this Dr. John Sarno theory, TMS, the mind-body syndrome. But the problem with ME/CFS was that the symptoms with ME/CFS are just so extreme and so severe. They're destroying lives. And it was not practical enough to apply for chronic fatigue syndrome. And that's why we're really happy that we managed this. So if we go back a few years, the treatments that people used to recover from ME/CFS and similar conditions, they were about pacing. Pacing was, for example, controlling the amount of energy that you spend during a day. It was about mindset. It was about nervous system regulation. And all of these tools are actually valuable for stabilization. But oftentimes they just become coping mechanisms. And you'll need more and more of this. You probably need to do them for the rest of your life. Because they rarely touch the deepest root layers where the actual danger signal lives. And then a few years ago, something else was added to the list. Brain retraining. And that was sort of like a successor from NLP. And that came out of the positive thinking movement. Now you might think like brain retraining sounds better than positive thinking. And of course, nowadays there's more to it. But this actually helped a lot of people. So what happened is that when you're having symptoms, when your life is being destroyed, all of a sudden you get into a negative loop. You worry only about money, about your health, about whether you can do groceries and cook, and your life can become a very negative spiral. And unfortunately, these negative spiral is also causing emotions. And when the brain is perceiving these emotions as a danger, it also creates symptoms because of that. So when you stop this negative loop, this negative spiral, people increase dramatically. But unfortunately, it doesn't really resolve the root cause. So for those who have not resolved the root cause, you can probably experience a temporary increase in energy. But yeah, when the thing that your brain perceives as a danger is still there, then you can count on relapses and stuff. I came in contact with many other coaches and content creators. And it's actually funny, we all know each other. We don't talk about each other, but we know each other. But to my surprise, they weren't anything like me. They were more interested in other things, for example, in marketing campaigns. And most of them had the just copy me method. So they had something that worked for them and they recovered, and then they wanted to market that. But the problem is that people are actually not recovering that straightforward. People are stumbling through their recoveries, doing sometimes hundreds, if not thousands of things. And that makes it very hard to know what worked and what doesn't. So I started doubting their methods, also because of these releases. And I started practicing these releases with over 1,000 clients to get better in releasing, because I had to make sure that I can help the entire world with this. Now, in the beginning, it was very hard, but luckily I had some beginner's luck. And after a week, more or less, I had the first release experience with a client. So he became symptom-free after releasing anger. And over time, I got better at it. And at a certain moment, I think my release rate was around 70%. And that meant that I thought that I was ready. That was in the summer of 2023. I decided to go public. The world needs to know about this. I reached out to many content creators. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited. This is going to happen. I'm going to help millions of people. And then nothing. But instead, I think that people became uncomfortable. You know, the traditional coaching system is built on predictable steps and symptom management. And true emotional releases, however, are raw. They are unpredictable. They are different for everyone. There are so many different emotions involved. There are protection mechanisms involved. They are messy. They don't fit into a neat 5-step Instagram aesthetic, which is why I think that most of the industry naturally avoids them. And also because talking about emotions can really cause you to have some backlash. Plus, what I also think is that it really confronts you with your own deeper issues. It's painful and you're never really ready. Like every day you can peel off another layer and connect with something more raw that is inside of you. And by doing that, you transform yourself. You no longer become the person that runs through life with stress hormones in order to achieve something like a status or an income. That no longer works. You become much more sensitive as well. So we're living in a world where CFS institutions are actually ignoring research. And some of these research that I initially discovered came all the way from the 1990s and the 1980s. And why are they doing that? Because Most of the time people email me with questions like, this is not proven. It is. Or chronic fatigue syndrome institutions are not mentioning this. And then I'm also, why don't they? Is it maybe because of funding? Because what I've noticed is that a lot of these institutions are all about trying to get funding for research to replicate research that was already done decades ago. And all of it together made me feel that there was sort of like an anti-force around this topic of healing. So if you think that you're unhealable, then in reality you just landed in a system of half-truths that keeps you locked in stress mode. And if you have done a lot of other methods, and they didn't help you, it really doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, that there's something wrong with your body, because most people really believe that. That's the resistance mechanism, that something is broken inside of their body, maybe because of a virus or anything like it. But it simply means that you have outgrown symptom management and you're finally ready to enter the deepest layer of healing, layer by layer. And since I'm not invited to speak on this subject, I'm not being asked for interviews. I would be very honored if you would write in the comments all your questions, and then you can interview me in a way. I will bundle all of these questions together and I will answer them in a YouTube video. When it comes to healing from a chronic illness, it is about how many layers of stress do you have? So if you have, for example, a few layers, let's say 6 or 7, then you can release those layers and then feel good. And usually when I meet people like this, they also have severe chronic fatigue syndrome, but then all of a sudden they're healed. It goes really fast. It maybe takes 3 or 4 months. Whereas there are also people with hundreds, if not thousands of layers. Now you might become afraid that you also have thousands of layers stored in your body, but really don't worry about it. Because even the coaches that work for me, they have thousands of layers, and that's exactly what I want, what's necessary. Because it's not really about trying to heal as fast as possible. It's not really about healing or being sick at all. It's more like you have a symptom, you dive in, you release, you feel better, and you go on with your day. And whether you then have 100 layers or 10,000s of layers, it really doesn't matter. But the coaches that work for me, they have a lot of layers. And that's incredibly important, because that means that they really gone through it and they can understand the client much better. And they have dealt with all kinds of difficult layers. Whereas if some coaches were only having like 3 or 4 layers, it's for them very tough to help people go through this. So that's why I don't think that you hear a lot about it, but I think that you deserve to know a lot about this. So in this video, this one, I demonstrate the release technique. And I'll do it by myself. I start crying because a few tears a day will keep the doctor away. And if you feel like this is the missing piece for your healing journey, visit our website and I share a lot for free. There are free guided meditations. And thank you for watching.